This obby looks very simple. Let's do it. It's a very easy obby. Let's try again. Third time's a charm, right?
One eternity later.
I finally made it. Let's do it again.
This is like a really easy obby, bro. You can't even do this. Get out of here. Alright, so now guys, let's think about this for a second. So let's say if I'm doing this obby and if I die, you should be seeing that I am spawning right in the checkpoint. And let's say if I complete this obby and I go to the next stage, and right over here, if I die, you should be seeing that I'm spawning at the second obby as well. So now if I try to finish this third obby, and then if I die, and you should be seeing that I'm spawning right on the third obby as well. And this is how this checkpoint system is going to work. And today, guys, I'll be teaching you on how to make this really nice checkpoint system. So let's get right into it. All right, so first things first, we're simply going to create a folder in the workspace. And I'm going to rename this workspace to checkpoints. Oh, sorry, folder to checkpoints. And inside the folder, I'm going to be adding some parts, some checkpoint parts. You can add how much ever you want, but I'm simply going to add 3 checkpoint parts. And also inside this checkpoint part, I'm simply going to add a int value over here. And I'm going to rename this int value to index. The reason why I'm doing is that you want every part to have an index. Like for example, let's say you are in the first stage, which means you want the index value to be 1. Similarly, if you are creating another part and this part is basically the second stage's checkpoint, you want to have the value as 2, and it goes on. So that is how you want to create your index values inside of your checkpoints folder. So this is going to be 3. And now that I've created 3 parts with index values, now we're going to insert a script inside of this folder right over here. I'm going to rename this script to checkpoint script. First, we're going to get the folder, which is local checkpoints folder equals script.parent. And then we're going to create a function, local function on character added. So this function basically runs if the player's character is being added right over here. And now I'm simply going to click on enter. So here we're going to get a loop through the checkpoints folder by simply typing for underscore comma checkpoint parts in pairs, and then checkpoints folder colon get children, and then I'm going to put do enter. And over here we're going to check if this checkpoint part is a part by typing if checkpoint parts colon is a base part. So it checks if any of these part is a base part, and here I'm going to put then. And now we're also going to check if the checkpoint part is being touched by typing checkpoint parts dot touched colon connect function, and the parameter is going to be hit. We're also going to check if the other part's parent is a character, and if the other part's parent has a humanoid by typing local humanoid equals hit dot parent colon find first child, and here I'm going to type humanoid. It checks if the parents of the other part has a humanoid. And now after that, we're going to check if the humanoid exists by typing if humanoid then. So now after checking if the humanoid exists or not, we first want to get the player by typing local player equals game.players colon get player from character. I'm simply going to type hit.parent, right? And now after the player touches a checkpoint, we also want to check if the player exists after getting the hit.parent by typing if player then. And now after that, after checking the player exists, we're going to set a attribute to the player by typing player set attribute check point. And here the value is going to be the checkpoint part dot index dot value. The reason why we're putting the index value is because remember that we created some index values inside of these checkpoints parts. And if player touches either of these parts, the index value basically becomes the player's attribute, and that value basically gets stored inside of the player. Then now gonna change the brick color of the checkpoint part by typing checkpoint part dot brick color equals brick color dot green. And yeah, so this is how you set a attribute to the player. Also, okay guys, so this doesn't have to be over here. Let me just put this about this function. We know how to put it over here because this won't work if this function is not being called. So it's better to put this right over here. And now inside of this character added function, whenever a player respawns, we want the player to spawn at the checkpoint. We don't want the player to spawn at the respawn part. We don't want the player to spawn over here. We want the player to spawn at the checkpoint part. So how do we do that? So over here, we're first gonna get the player index, the checkpoint index by simply typing. But before that, we first want to get the player. So how do we do that? We first get the player by typing local die player equals game dot players get player from character. I'm gonna put the character. And we're also going to check if the die player exists by typing if die player. Then we're going to create a variable which is local checkpoint index equals die player get attribute, and that attribute is going to be the checkpoint right over here. So now after doing that, we're actually going to loop through the checkpoints folder one more time by typing for underscore comma checkpoint parts in pairs, and the parameter is going to be the checkpoints folder gets children. And now we're going to put do. So over here we're actually going to get the part with respect to the index value. So how do we do that? We first create a empty variable, which is the checkpoint part to respawn. This is going to be an empty variable. I'm simply going to put it as nil. And now we're going to loop through these parts. But before that, we also have to check if the checkpoint part is a base part. And now after checking that, we're simply going to first check if the index value of either of these parts is equal to the checkpoint index of the died player. So how do we do that? We first type it like this. So if checkpoints parts dot index dot value equals the checkpoint part is equal to the checkpoint index. And if these two things are equal, then we basically want to make the player spawn on top of this checkpoint part. So now after that, we're simply going to put the checkpoint oh, what's going on? Oh, my bad. Let me just put that. And here I'm going to put checkpoint part to respawn equals checkpoint part. And now after that, I'm simply going to break the loop because we already got the part where the player has to respawn at. So now after doing all of that, we're simply gonna make the player spawn over there. So how do we do that? We simply get the character and we're gonna put pivots to. So after that, we're simply gonna get the C frame, which is the checkpoints part to respawn dot position plus vector 3 dot new. I'm going to put 0 comma 4 comma 0. So what exactly happens over here is that this specific function will basically get fired every time the player respawns. And if the player respawns, then we first get the parts, we get the the obby where the player died. And after the player dies, the checkpoint index value basically gets stored as an attribute to the player. So that's what we scripted over here. So over here, if a player touches a part, the player's checkpoint gets stored as the attribute. The value, the checkpoint part.index.value gets stored inside of the checkpoint attribute. And we're going to get that attribute and check what part has this specific value. So right now there are 3 parts. Let's say the player touched checkpoint number 3, which means that this checkpoint index is going to be 3. And if it is 3, we're going to get the part that has the checkpoint index 3. After that, we're basically going to spawn that player right above the checkpoint part. So now after creating this, we're simply going to do one last thing. We're going to check if the player has been respawned, like if the player joined the game. So by typing game.players.playerAdded::connect function, and the parameter is going to be the joined player. So now after that, we're also gonna connect this function to the player.characterAdded function by typing joined player.characterAdded::connect, and we're gonna connect the onCharacterAdded function. We don't need the brackets because this function already has a parameter, and that a parameter goes to this specific function. And also we're going to do one more check by typing if join player.character, and then we basically call this function on character added join player.character. And also one more thing, if the player joins the game, we could also set the attributes, the checkpoint attributes to 1 by typing join player.set attribute checkpoint comma 1. And yep, that's pretty much how you create this really nice checkpoint system. And also guys, one more thing, whenever the player touches the part, we ideally want to create a debounce table by typing local player db equals an empty table. And also after getting the player, we also want to check if the player does not exist in this table by typing and not player db and player. And after that, we're simply gonna put this to true. Player db player equals true. And then we're simply gonna put a task dot wait maybe for 1 second, and then we'll make this as net. So we're essentially creating a debounce because we don't want this touch event to fire multiple times. You only want this event to fire every second to ensure optimization of the system. So now I guess that's pretty much what you're supposed to do. And yeah, so now if we go back to the game and if I hit run, you should be seeing that if I play the game, I'm spawning at the first checkpoint. So now let's say I'm touching the second checkpoint, this also became green. And now if I reset my character, you should be seeing that I'm spawning right at the top of the second checkpoint. And now if I touch the third checkpoint, and then if I reset my character, you should be seeing that I'm spawning at the third checkpoint right over here. Alright guys, thank you so much guys for watching this video. I really hope that this video gave a pretty useful insight as to how checkpoint systems work in Roblox Studio. Oh, and also I forgot to anchor these parts, so make sure you guys anchor these parts. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.